The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched for miles in every direction. Crystal towers reached toward the ceiling that showed the stars beyond. 12 different alien species sat in their designated areas, each section designed for their specific needs. The air shimmered with translation fields that turned every word into something each species could understand. Ambassador Kethaval stood at the center podium. His tall, blue-skinned form cast long shadows across the polished floor. The Dominion had ruled this part of space for over 3,000 years. When Kethaval spoke, other species listened. "We are here today to discuss a threat to our peaceful galaxy," he began. His voice carried easily through the vast chamber. "The humans have become a problem that we can no longer ignore." A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. Some nodded in agreement. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Only one figure remained perfectly still. Admiral Jake Morrison sat alone in the human section. His gray hair was cut short in military fashion. His weathered face showed no emotion as he listened to the charges against his species. At 65 years old, he had spent most of his life working to build trust between humans and aliens. Today, he watched that work crumble. "The evidence speaks for itself," Kethaval continued. A holographic display appeared above the podium. It showed star maps with human colonies marked in red. In the past 50 years, humans have established settlements in 47 systems. They have ignored our warnings about restricted zones. They have built military bases in neutral space. The serpentine Veltar ambassador rose from her coiled position. Her scales reflected the light as she moved. "The humans do not respect our ancient laws," she hissed. "They question every rule we have established. They act as if our wisdom means nothing to them." More voices joined the complaints. The Zephyrians, beings of living crystal, chimed in harmony about human mining operations that disturbed sacred sites. The gaseous ethereals pulsed with angry colors as they spoke of human atmospheric processors that changed the composition of their worlds. Admiral Morrison finally stood. The chamber fell silent. He walked slowly to the speaking area, his footsteps echoing in the quiet hall. "May I respond to these charges?" he asked. Kethaval gestured for him to continue. "Speak, human, but know that your words will not change what must be done." Morrison looked around the chamber. He had friends among some of these species. The Centaurians had traded peacefully with humans for decades. The Aquatic Collective had shared technology that helped terraform dead worlds, but today they all looked at him with suspicion and fear. "You say we have ignored your warnings," Morrison began, "but those warnings were about systems that showed no signs of intelligent life. We followed all protocols for establishing colonies. We sent survey teams first. We waited for approval from your science committees." "Approval that was denied," Kethaval interrupted. "Yet you proceeded anyway." "We proceeded because our people needed new homes," Morrison replied. "Earth's population was growing beyond what our world could support. We were facing starvation and resource depletion. We asked for help, and you gave us regulations instead." The crystalline Zephyrian ambassador rang like a bell. "You could have requested population controls. You could have accepted our guidance on sustainable development." Morrison's jaw tightened. "You wanted us to limit our families, to stop our children from being born, to accept permanent dependence on your charity." He paused. "That is not the human way." "Exactly the problem," hissed the Veltar ambassador. "You refuse to accept limits. You refuse to follow the order that has kept peace in this galaxy for millennia." Dr. Zaris, the Council's chief scientist, activated another display. This one showed human research stations scattered across the galaxy. "The humans conduct dangerous experiments," she said. "They work with dark matter, quantum fields, and temporal mechanics without proper oversight. They could destabilize entire star systems." Morrison nodded slowly. "We conduct research to solve problems. Dark matter studies help us understand the universe. Quantum field manipulation allows us to grow food on barren worlds. Temporal mechanics might one day help us prevent natural disasters. Or create them," Kethaval said sharply. "Your species thinks only of what you can do, never of what you should do." The charges continued for hours. Humans had built ships that were too fast. They had developed weapons that were too powerful. They had spread through space too quickly. They had asked too many questions and accepted too few answers. With each accusation, Morrison felt the weight of inevitability settling on his shoulders. He had seen this coming for years. The other species were afraid of human potential. They preferred a galaxy where change came slowly, where traditions were respected, where everyone knew their place. Finally, HFY called for order. "The evidence is clear," he announced. "Humanity poses a threat to galactic stability. They cannot be trusted to self-regulate. They cannot be allowed to continue their reckless expansion." "What do you propose?" asked the ethereal representative, his gaseous form shifting colors. "Containment," HFY replied. "All human colonies beyond the Sol system must be evacuated. Humanity will be restricted to their home system until they can prove they have learned to respect galactic law." The chamber erupted in discussion. Some delegates nodded approval. Others seemed troubled by the harsh measure. The Centaurian ambassador stood and spoke in her melodic voice. "This seems extreme," she said. "Perhaps we could establish a monitoring system instead. Send observers to human colonies to ensure compliance." "We tried that," the Veltar ambassador replied. "Human colonies refused to allow our observers access to their research facilities. They claimed privacy rights and territorial sovereignty. Because you wanted to put spies in our schools and hospitals," Morrison said, his voice rising for the first time. "You wanted to monitor our private communications and restrict our scientific research. To ensure your compliance with galactic law," HFY shot back. Morrison stood tall, his military bearing evident. "You don't want compliance, you want submission. You want us to become another client species dependent on your approval for everything we do." The debate raged for another hour. Some species argued for lesser measures, others pushed for even harsher restrictions. But when the vote came, the result was clear. 11 species voted for containment. 1 abstained. HFY's voice carried across the silent chamber. "By the authority of the Galactic Council, humanity is hereby ordered to evacuate all settlements beyond the Sol system. This evacuation will begin immediately and be completed within 72 standard hours. Any resistance will be met with force from the combined Council fleets." Morrison closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his expression was calm, but cold. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly. "Humanity has survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and world wars. We've thrived in deserts, frozen wastelands, and the depths of space. We don't need your permission to survive." He turned to face the assembled delegates. "But you might need our help more than you realize. The galaxy is a dangerous place. Pirates, natural disasters, and resource conflicts don't respect your ancient laws. Human fleets have been keeping the peace in dozens of systems. Human researchers have been solving problems that your traditional methods couldn't touch. We managed for thousands of years before humans arrived," HFY said dismissively. Morrison almost smiled. "Yes, you managed, but you never grew. You never changed. You never reached for something better." He gathered his papers and prepared to leave. "In 72 hours, you'll get your wish. Humanity will be gone from Council space." He paused at the chamber entrance. "I just hope you're ready for what comes next." As Morrison left the chamber, the delegates began discussing the logistics of the evacuation. None of them noticed the small recording device he had left behind. None of them suspected that every word of the proceedings was being transmitted to human ships throughout the galaxy. The Council had made its decision. Now humanity would make theirs, and the galaxy would never be the same. Captain Lisa Hayes stood on the bridge of the transport ship New Horizon and watched the evacuation fleet spread across space like glittering stars. Thousands of ships moved in perfect formation, from massive arc vessels that could carry entire cities to small family transports barely larger than shuttles. The sight should have filled her with despair, but instead she felt something else entirely. Pride. "Status report," she called to her navigation officer. Lieutenant Danny Cole checked his instruments. "All civilian transports are maintaining course and speed." The military escort is spread throughout the formation. No signs of council interference. So far. Hayes nodded. The aliens had kept their word about allowing a peaceful evacuation, but she knew they were watching. Council observation ships followed at a safe distance, making sure every human actually left their space. On the main screen, the planet New Terra grew smaller by the hour. Hayes had called that world home for 15 years. She had watched her daughter take her first steps in the red soil of the southern continent. She had helped build the first permanent structures in what became the capital city. Now it was all being left behind. "Captain," came a voice from behind her. Dr. Nathan, Cross, the colony's chief scientist, approached with a data pad in his hands. His usually calm face showed stress lines around his eyes. "How are the downloads going, Nathan?" Hayes asked. "We're almost finished," Cross replied. 15 years of research data, geological surveys, biological samples, atmospheric readings. All of it is being transferred to the archive ships. Hayes studied the data pad. The numbers were impressive. The humans had learned more about their adopted worlds in a few decades than the council species had discovered in centuries of occasional surveys. "What about the special projects?" she asked quietly. Cross glanced around the bridge, then leaned closer. "The gravitational anomaly data from the Vega system is secure. The quantum field studies from the Kepler colonies are encrypted and distributed across multiple ships. And the deep space survey results." He paused. "Those are hidden where the Council will never find them." Hayes felt a grim smile cross her face. The Council thought they were taking everything from humanity. They had no idea what humans had actually discovered during their expansion into space. Down in the ship's cargo bay, Colony Administrator Paul Bennett supervised the loading of the last personal belongings. Families stood in long lines. Each person allowed only 2 small bags. Children clutched toys and pictures. Adults carried photo albums and small mementos. "It's not fair," said 8-year-old Amy Parker, tears streaming down her face. "New Terra is my home. I don't want to leave." Her mother, Sarah Parker, knelt beside her daughter. "I know, sweetheart. But sometimes we have to leave our homes to find new ones. Remember the stories about your great-great-grandmother? She left Earth to come to New Terra when she was your age." "But she wanted to come here," Amy protested. "We don't want to leave." Bennett overheard the conversation and approached the family. "Amy, can I tell you something?" The little girl nodded, wiping her nose. "Your great-great-grandmother left Earth because she wanted to see new worlds and have adventures. Now you get to do the same thing." "Where are we going?" Amy asked. Bennett smiled mysteriously. "Places the Council has never seen. Places so wonderful they don't even know they exist." On the engineering deck, Maria Santos ran final checks on the ship's modified drive system. The New Horizon looked like a standard transport vessel, but appearances could be deceiving. Hidden beneath the normal hull plating were systems the Council had never seen before. "Drive efficiency at 127% of rated capacity," reported her assistant engineer Tom Bradley. "The new fuel mixture is working better than we hoped." Santos nodded. The fuel mixture was something human scientists had developed in secret. It used elements found only in the outer regions of certain star systems, places the Council considered worthless because they were too far from traditional trade routes. "What about the navigation upgrades?" Santos asked. Bradley checked another set of readings. "The quantum sensors are functioning perfectly. We can detect spatial anomalies from twice the normal range. If there are any natural wormholes or dimensional rifts along our route, we'll find them." Santos allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The Council thought they were forcing humans to retreat to Earth. They had no idea that humanity was about to leap forward into territory the aliens couldn't even imagine. On the flagship of the evacuation fleet, Admiral Morrison met with his senior staff. The war room was crowded with captains, scientists, and administrators from all the human colonies. "Ladies and gentlemen," Morrison began, "I want to be clear about our situation. The Council has given us 72 hours to clear their space. After that, any human presence will be considered hostile." Captain Rogers of the military escort spoke up. "Sir, Our combat ships could hold off the Council fleets for weeks, maybe months. We don't have to run. Morrison shook his head. Fighting would only prove their point about human aggression. Besides, we have something better than weapons. He activated a holographic display that showed star charts unlike anything the Council had ever seen. These maps showed not just stars and planets, but something else entirely. Thin lines connected distant points across the galaxy, forming a complex network that stretched beyond the known regions of space. For the past 30 years, human explorers have been mapping quantum tunnels throughout this region of the galaxy, Morrison explained. Natural wormholes that can transport ships across vast distances instantly. The Council never found them because they never looked beyond their established territories. Dr. Cross stood up. The quantum tunnels don't follow normal space-time rules. Some of them connect to regions outside this galaxy entirely. We've detected stable passages to Andromeda, Triangulum, and 3 other galaxies that don't even have names yet. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Captain Lisa Hayes spoke first. You're saying we're not really being exiled. We're being set free. Morrison nodded. The Council thinks they're containing us to one star system. What they've actually done is forced us to use technology and knowledge they don't possess. In trying to limit human expansion, they've accidentally triggered the next phase of human evolution. Administrator Bennett pulled up another display. We've already selected target systems in the Andromeda Reach, worlds that show signs of having the resources we need to build not just colonies but entire civilizations. What about Earth? Asked Captain Rogers. Are we abandoning our home world? Earth will remain our birthplace, Morrison replied, but it won't be our prison. Small groups will return to maintain the fiction that humanity has accepted containment. Meanwhile, our real expansion will take place in regions the Council has never heard of. Engineer Santos activated her section of the display. The quantum tunnel network will allow instantaneous communication and transportation between our new colonies. We can build an empire that spans multiple galaxies while the Council thinks we're quietly farming in the Sol system. The meeting continued for hours as the various department heads outlined their plans. The evacuation wasn't a retreat. It was the first phase of the largest expansion in human history. 3 days later, the last human transport crossed the boundary of Council space. Alien monitoring stations tracked the ships as they headed toward the Sol system, then lost interest. The humans were gone and good riddance, but the aliens missed something important. Just before reaching Earth's solar system, the human fleet split up. Most of the ships continued toward Earth, maintaining the illusion of a defeated species returning home. But nearly half the fleet changed course, heading toward regions of space that didn't appear on any Council star chart. Captain Hayes watched from the New Horizons bridge as Earth appeared on their screens. It looked smaller than she remembered, almost fragile compared to the vast frontier that lay ahead. Set course for the Vega system, she ordered. It's time to find out what's waiting for us on the other side of that quantum tunnel. As the New Horizon and hundreds of other ships disappeared into the unknown, the Council monitoring stations recorded their final transmission back to Earth. It was a simple message that would have puzzled any alien who intercepted it. The journey has just begun. Behind them, the Council species congratulated themselves on solving the human problem. They had no idea that they had just unleashed humanity upon an entire universe that was about to become much smaller than anyone had ever imagined. 6 months had passed since the last human transport ship disappeared from Council space. Commander Zarthok of the Galactic Security Force should have felt relieved. The troublesome species was gone, contained in their home system where they belonged. Instead, he stared at the reports on his desk with growing unease. Another merchant convoy lost in the Rigel sector. His aide, Lieutenant Keseva, reported. Her blue skin had turned pale with worry. That makes 7 ships this month. Zarthok rubbed his temples. The Rigel sector had been one of the safest shipping lanes in Council space for decades. Human patrol ships had kept the pirates in check, their fast vessels and aggressive tactics making criminal activity too dangerous to be profitable. Now the pirates were back in force. What about the defense platforms? Zarthok asked. The automated systems are still functioning, Keseva replied, but they're designed to work with patrol ship support. The pirates have learned to avoid the platform's sensor ranges. Zarthok stood and walked to the large window that showed the stars beyond the station. Somewhere out there, merchant captains were changing their routes, avoiding sectors that had been perfectly safe just months ago. Insurance rates were climbing. Trade was slowing. "Send a message to Fleet Command," he ordered. "Request additional patrol ships for the outer sectors." Keseva hesitated. "Sir, Fleet Command has already denied 3 similar requests this month. They say we need to adapt to operating without human assistance." The irony wasn't lost on Zarthok. For 30 years, the Council had complained about human military presence in their space. Now they were discovering why those ships had been there in the first place. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, Administrator Velnash watched the excavation equipment sit silent in the vast open pit. The mining operation had been running smoothly for 15 years, extracting rare minerals that were essential for advanced technology throughout Council space. Then the humans left, taking their expertise with them. "The automated systems keep breaking down," Chief Engineer Korth reported. His rocky skin showed stress fractures that indicated extreme frustration. "The mineral extraction process is more complex than our manuals indicate." Velnash studied the production reports. Output had dropped by 60% in the past 3 months. The remaining alien technicians couldn't maintain the delicate balance of chemical processes that the human engineers had perfected. "What about the replacement equipment from the Dominion?" Velnash asked. Korth's expression darkened. "It's designed for different ore types. The conversion would take months and cost more than the mine produces in a year." The administrator felt a chill that had nothing to do with the planet's cold atmosphere. Kepler 442b was just one of dozens of mining operations that had relied on human technical knowledge. If they were all experiencing similar problems, the economic impact would be catastrophic. In the council chambers, Dr. Zaris presented her findings to an increasingly worried assembly. The chief scientist had been tracking the effects of human withdrawal across council space, and the results were disturbing. "The supply chain disruptions are spreading faster than we anticipated," she reported. 17 key mining operations have reduced output. 23 agricultural worlds are experiencing crop failures without human soil treatment systems. The Deep Space Monitoring Network has lost 30% of its sensor stations. Ambassador Kethaval shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "These are temporary problems. We survived for millennia before humans arrived in our space." "But we weren't dependent on their systems then," Dr. Zaris replied. "Over the past 50 years, human technology has become integrated into our infrastructure. Food production, communication networks, transportation systems, resource extraction. All of it relies on processes that humans developed." The Veltar ambassador hissed her frustration. "Why didn't our scientists study these systems? Why didn't we learn how they worked?" Dr. Zaris activated a holographic display that showed the complexity of human agricultural systems. "We tried. But human technology isn't just about machines and computers. It's about integrated thinking, problem-solving approaches that our species don't use naturally." The display showed a simple example: a human soil treatment facility. What looked like a basic chemical plant actually involved dozens of interconnected processes, each one adjusted based on local conditions, weather patterns, and crop requirements. The humans had been making constant small adjustments that kept the whole system working perfectly. Now those adjustments weren't being made. "The humans offered to train our people," Dr. Zaris continued. "But we refused, saying we wanted to maintain our technological independence." The chamber fell silent. Everyone remembered those offers. The council had viewed them as attempts at cultural infiltration, ways for humans to make other species dependent on their knowledge. On the border world of Tau Ceti Prime, Governor Murdoch received an urgent message from his military commander. The planet was located near the edge of council space, in a region that had seen increasing tensions with non-council species. "Sir, we've lost contact with the early warning stations in the neutral zone," Commander Veltash reported. "The automated beacons went dark 3 days ago." Murdoch felt his blood run cold. The early warning network had been established jointly by the Council and human forces. Human ships regularly patrolled the area, maintaining the equipment and watching for hostile activity. "What about our own monitoring systems?" Murdoch asked. "They're designed to work with the early warning network," Veltash replied. "Without the advance information, we're essentially blind to threats until they're almost on top of us." The governor activated his communication system and tried to contact the regional defense coordinator. The response he received was not encouraging. "We're experiencing similar problems throughout the border regions," came the reply. The humans didn't just provide patrol ships. They maintained an entire intelligence network that we never fully understood. That night, Murdoch stood on his balcony and looked up at the stars. For the first time in decades, he felt vulnerable. The peace and security that had defined life in council space was beginning to crack. Dr. Zaris made another disturbing discovery while reviewing the evacuation records. She had been trying to understand how the humans had managed to evacuate so efficiently, moving millions of people and vast amounts of equipment in just 72 hours. The answer, when she found it, made her question everything she thought. She knew about human capabilities. They took everything, she announced to the emergency council session that had been called to address the growing crisis. Not just people and obvious technology. They somehow managed to take biological samples, atmospheric processors, even terraforming organisms we didn't know they had access to. Ambassador Kethaval leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Dr. Zaris activated a detailed analysis of the evacuation data. Every human colony had extensive biological research facilities. They were collecting samples from every world they visited, studying local ecosystems, analyzing atmospheric compositions. They knew more about our worlds than we did. The implications were staggering. The humans hadn't just been building colonies. They had been conducting the largest scientific survey in galactic history, gathering information about resources, life forms, and planetary conditions across hundreds of star systems. "But why?" asked the ethereal representative. "What was the purpose of all this data collection?" Dr. Xeris had been afraid someone would ask that question. "I believe they were preparing for exactly what happened. They knew that eventually there would be a conflict with the Council, so they were gathering the information they would need to survive independently." The chamber erupted in discussion. Some delegates argued that this proved human duplicity. Others wondered if it showed remarkable foresight. All of them were beginning to understand that they had underestimated human capabilities. The reports kept coming in. Trade routes disrupted, mining operations failing, agricultural systems breaking, down communication networks developing gaps. The carefully maintained infrastructure of Council space was revealing its dependence on human involvement. Commander Zarthok received the most troubling report yet. Deep space monitoring stations had detected no human activity anywhere in known space. No ships, no communications, no energy signatures. It was as if humanity had simply vanished from the galaxy. "Where did they go?" he asked his staff. Nobody had an answer. The Council had wanted the humans gone, and they had gotten their wish. But as the weeks passed and the problems multiplied, a disturbing thought began to grow in the minds of the alien leaders. Maybe getting rid of the humans hadn't been such a good idea after all. 1 year after the human exodus, deep space probe Sentinel-7 was conducting a routine survey of the Andromeda Reach. The automated probe had been launched decades ago to map the empty regions beyond Council space. Its mission was simple: catalog star systems, identify potential resources, and report anything unusual. The probe's artificial intelligence had been operating alone for months, following its programming without variation. It scanned each system methodically, recorded its findings, and moved on to the next target. The Andromeda Reach was supposed to be empty space, too far from any habitable worlds to support life. That's why the energy signature made no sense. The probe's sensors detected a massive power source coming from a system that shouldn't have had anything more complex than asteroids and gas clouds. The readings showed fusion reactors operating at levels that exceeded anything in Council records. Sentinel-7 changed course to investigate. As the probe approached the source of the energy readings, its cameras began recording images that would change everything the Council thought they knew about the galaxy. A fleet of ships moved through space with purpose and coordination. These weren't primitive vessels or ancient derelicts. They were human ships. Captain Steve Parker stood on the bridge of the research vessel Endeavour and watched the Council probe approach. His ship was one of hundreds operating in the Andromeda Reach, part of humanity's new expansion into previously unknown territory. Unknown probe. "This is Captain Parker of the research vessel Endeavour," he said into his communication system. "You are entering human territorial space. Please state your business and intentions." The probe's artificial intelligence struggled to process the message. According to all available data, humans had been restricted to the Sol system over a year ago. Yet here was a human captain claiming territorial rights in a region thousands of light years from Earth. The probe transmitted its confusion back to Council space. The message would take months to arrive, but when it did, it would shatter every assumption the aliens had made about human capabilities. On the bridge of the Endeavour, Lieutenant Commander Rachel Stone monitored the probe's activities. "It's just observing us," she reported. "Standard Council reconnaissance protocols." Captain Parker nodded. "Let it watch. Send the probe our standard greeting package. Navigation charts, trade information, territorial boundaries. Treat it like any other first contact situation." The probe received the data transmission and its AI nearly overloaded trying to process the information. The navigation charts showed human settlements in dozens of systems that didn't appear on any Council star map. Trade routes connected colonies across vast distances that should have taken years to travel. Territorial boundaries encompassed regions, larger than entire Council sectors. Most impossible of all were the population figures. According to the data, millions of humans were living and working in the Andromeda Reach. The evacuation from Council space had involved less than 100 million people total. Dr. Xeris received the probe's transmission 6 months later and immediately called an emergency Council session. She stood before the assembled delegates with data that challenged everything they thought they understood about space travel and colonization. The probe encountered a human fleet in the Andromeda Reach, she announced. According to the data they provided, humans have established sovereign colonies in 47 star systems previously thought to be uninhabitable. The chamber erupted in confusion and disbelief. Ambassador Kethval was the first to find his voice. "Impossible," he declared. "The Andromeda Reach is thousands of light years from the nearest habitable system. Even with the fastest ships, it would take decades to reach those regions." Dr. Xeris activated the holographic display and showed the probe's recordings. Ships moved through space using technology that bent the very fabric of reality around them. Installations floated in the void between stars, drawing energy from sources the Council couldn't identify. "The humans are using some form of faster-than-light travel that we've never seen before," Dr. Xeris continued. "Their ships seem to move through folded space, covering vast distances almost instantaneously." The Veltar ambassador coiled in agitation. "How is this possible? Our scientists have studied human technology for decades. They use the same basic principles we do." "Apparently not," Dr. Xeris replied grimly. "I've been analyzing the gravitational anomalies that human exploration teams were investigating before the evacuation. I believe they discovered something we missed entirely." She changed the display to show a complex map of gravitational distortions throughout the galaxy. Thin lines connected distant points across space, forming a network that stretched far beyond the boundaries of Council territory. "These appear to be naturally occurring wormholes," Dr. Xeris explained. "Quantum tunnels that allow instantaneous travel between distant points. The humans have been mapping this network for decades." The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. While the Council had been content to explore their local region of space using conventional travel, humans had discovered a transportation system that connected the entire galaxy. Commander Veltash of the Hegemony Fleet stood abruptly. "If humans control these wormholes, they could travel anywhere in the galaxy without warning. They could appear in our space at any time." "It gets worse," Dr. Xeris said. "Long-range sensors have detected massive construction projects throughout the Andromeda Reach. The energy signatures indicate industrial facilities operating at scales we've never achieved." The display showed readings from deep space telescopes that had been monitoring the region. Artificial structures were being built around stars, drawing energy directly from stellar cores. Entire moons were being converted into manufacturing facilities. Gas giants were being mined for resources using technology that could strip away planetary atmospheres. They're not just building colonies, Dr. Zaris continued. They're constructing an industrial base that could support billions of people across multiple star systems. Ambassador Kethaval felt the authority of millennia of Dominion rule crumbling around him. How long have they been planning this? Based on the construction timelines, I estimate they began serious preparation at least 20 years ago, Dr. Zaris replied. The evacuation wasn't a retreat. It was the final phase of a migration that had been in progress for decades. The high, ethereal representative pulsed with alarmed colors. You're saying they used our legal restrictions as cover for their real expansion? Exactly. While we were arguing about their colonies in council space, they were building an empire in regions we didn't even know existed. The chamber fell silent as the delegates absorbed the full scope of their miscalculation. They had thought they were containing a troublesome species. Instead, they had accidentally forced humanity to become something far beyond anything they had imagined possible. Dr. Zaris activated one final display that showed the true scale of human expansion. The network of quantum tunnels connected not just distant parts of their own galaxy, but reached into neighboring galaxies as well. Andromeda, Triangulum, and several smaller galaxies all showed signs of human activity. The probe data indicates that humans now control transportation networks spanning multiple galaxies, she announced. They have access to resources on a scale that makes our entire civilization look like a small provincial settlement. Commander Zarthok spoke for the first time during the session. What about their population? How could they support so many people so quickly? Dr. Zaris had been afraid of that question. The colonization data suggests they're using advanced cloning and artificial birth technologies. They can establish viable populations in new systems within months instead of generations. The revelation that humans could reproduce their civilization at will across unlimited territory left the council delegates speechless. Everything they had understood about colonization, resource management, and territorial expansion had just become obsolete. There's one more thing, Dr. Zaris said quietly. The probe detected ships that don't match any known human designs. The hull configurations and energy signatures suggest they've made contact with non-council species in the outer galaxies. The implications were staggering. While the council had been a closed group of 12 species governing a small region of space, humanity had apparently been building alliances across the entire local galaxy cluster. As the emergency session ended, the delegates departed in stunned silence. The species that had confidently voted to exile humanity now faced the terrifying realization that they had created a galactic superpower that made their combined civilizations look primitive by comparison. The humans were no longer the ones who needed to worry about following galactic law. Now it was the Council's turn to wonder if they would be allowed to continue existing in the new order that humanity was building among the stars. 2 years after forcing humanity from Council space, the great chamber that had once echoed with confident alien voices now felt cold and uncertain. The same delegates who had unanimously voted for human containment sat in their designated areas, but their posture showed defeat rather than authority. Ambassador Kethaval looked older than his years. The proud Dominion leader who had led the charge against human expansion now stared at empty space, knowing that everything he had built over 3 millennia was crumbling. The chamber's main screen activated without warning. No one had requested a transmission, but the Council's communication systems were responding to an outside signal with authority codes that shouldn't have existed. A human woman appeared on the screen. She wore a simple blue uniform with insignia that no Council member recognized. Her brown hair was pulled back professionally, and her green eyes held a confidence that made the alien delegates shift uncomfortably. "Greetings, Galactic Council," she said. Her voice carried clearly through the translation systems. "I am Ambassador Karen Wright of the Human Stellar Federation. I am requesting an immediate audience to discuss new territorial boundaries and trade agreements." The chamber fell silent. Ambassador HFY finally found his voice. How did you access our communication systems? This is a closed council session. Ambassador Wright smiled politely. The Human Stellar Federation maintains diplomatic protocols with all spacefaring civilizations in this galaxy cluster. Your communication systems are now compatible with our network standards. Dr. Zaris felt a chill run through her crystalline body. The humans hadn't just contacted them. They had somehow upgraded the Council's own technology without anyone noticing. You were ordered to remain in the Sol system, HFY said, trying to maintain some authority. Any presence outside your assigned territory constitutes a violation of Council law. Wright's expression didn't change. Council law applies to Council space. The Human Stellar Federation now governs 47 star systems in this galaxy, 63 systems in Andromeda, 31 in Triangulum, and preliminary settlements in 3 other galaxies that your people haven't discovered yet. She paused, to let the numbers sink in. We control the primary quantum tunnel network that connects these regions, enabling instantaneous travel and communication across distances that would take your fastest ship centuries to cover using conventional methods. The holographic display activated, showing a 3-dimensional map that stretched far beyond anything the Council had ever seen. Galaxies spun slowly in the projection, connected by glowing lines that represented the transportation network humanity now controlled. This is impossible, whispered the Veltar ambassador. No species could expand so quickly. You're correct, Wright replied. No single species could accomplish this alone. The Human Stellar Federation includes 17 different intelligent species that have joined our alliance. Most of them are from regions you've never explored. The map zoomed in to show details that made the Council delegates gasp. Massive space stations orbited artificial suns. Entire solar systems had been converted into industrial complexes. Planets that had never known life now supported thriving civilizations. Commander Veltash leaned forward. What do you want from us? Wright's expression became more serious. The Council has a choice. You can join the Human Stellar Federation as equal partners in a new galactic community, or you can remain isolated in your current territory while the universe moves forward without you. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several delegates stood and began speaking at once. The ethereal representative pulsed with indignant colors. The crystalline Zephyrians chimed discordantly. Wright waited patiently for the noise to die down. I understand this is difficult to accept, she continued. 2 years ago, you believed you were dealing with an aggressive species that needed to be contained. You thought you were protecting galactic stability by forcing us to leave. The display changed to show a timeline of events since the human evacuation. Trade disruptions, system failures, security breakdowns, economic collapse. The decline of Council civilization was documented in painful detail. But you made a fundamental error in your assessment of humanity, Wright said. You thought we were aggressive because we expanded quickly. You thought we were dangerous because we questioned your rules. But you never understood what actually drives human behavior. Admiral Morrison stepped into view beside Ambassador Wright. The man who had stood alone in this chamber 2 years ago now wore the uniform of the Human Stellar Federation Supreme Command. His weathered face showed the same calm expression, but his eyes held the confidence of someone who controlled the largest military force in galactic history. We don't expand because we're aggressive, Morrison said. We expand because we're curious. We don't question your rules because we're rebellious. We question them because we're always looking for better ways to do things. The display showed images of human colonies that defied everything the Council thought they knew about planetary development. Underwater cities thrived on water worlds. Floating platforms harvested energy from gas giant atmospheres. Space habitats supported millions of people in the void between stars. When you told us to leave, Wright continued, you forced us to become something far beyond what we ever would have been content to remain. You wanted us to stay small and manageable. Instead, you made us think bigger than any species in galactic history. Dr. Zaris found the courage to speak. What happens to our civilizations, to our cultures and traditions? Wright's expression softened. They continue, enhanced by access to resources and knowledge beyond anything you've imagined. The Centaurian trade guilds are already working with human merchants to establish new commercial routes. The Aquatic Collective has requested assistance with deep ocean exploration on their colony worlds. The display showed examples of human-alien cooperation that were already taking place. Zephyrian crystal technology combined with human engineering to create computing systems of incredible power. Veltar biological expertise merged with human genetic research to develop new medical treatments. You see, Morrison added, we never wanted to be your enemies. We wanted to be your partners, but you weren't ready for the kind of partnership we were offering. Ambassador Kethaval struggled to maintain his dignity. And if we refuse your offer? Right, shrugged. Then you remain in your current territory while the rest of the galaxy develops around you. Your 12 systems become a small historical curiosity in a universe spanning millions of star systems and dozens of intelligent species. The threat wasn't spoken harshly, but its implications were clear. The Council could join the new galactic order or become irrelevant to it. However, Wright continued, humanity remembers its friends. Species that choose to join the Federation gain access to technologies that can solve problems you didn't even know you had. Unlimited clean energy, instantaneous interstellar communication, medical techniques that can extend lifespans by centuries. She gestured to the display, which now showed Federation colonies where different species worked together on projects. That seemed like magic to Council observers. The choice is yours, Wright concluded. But I should mention that this offer has a time limit. The Federation is expanding rapidly, and we need to know which species want to be part of our future. Oidole. Chamber fell silent as the delegates considered their options. 2 years ago, they had been the dominant power in this region of space. Now they were being offered junior partnership in an organization that spanned multiple galaxies. The vote, when it came, was very different from the one that had started this crisis. 12 species voted unanimously to accept humanity's terms for joining the Human Stellar Federation. As the session ended, Ambassador Wright allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem was to be forced to think bigger than anyone thought possible. Admiral Morrison joined her as they prepared to leave. Think they've learned their lesson? Wright considered the question. They've learned that trying to limit human potential only makes us find new ways to exceed it. Whether they've learned to work with us instead of against us remains to be seen. The Council had watched the humans leave, thinking they were protecting themselves from a dangerous species. Only too late did they realize they had unleashed humanity's greatest strength, the ability to turn any setback into an opportunity for unprecedented growth. Now, as junior members of a galactic federation they could never have imagined, the former Council species would have to learn to think as big as humans did. The galaxy would never be the same.